Good afternoon, and thank you all for standing by. This is the conference coordinator. All lines will be placed on listen only until we're ready for the question and answer session of today's call. This call is also being recorded. If you do have any objections, please disconnect at this time. I would now like to introduce your speaker, Ms. Kathy Ferguson. You may begin, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you, Lori. I appreciate it. And welcome, everyone, to the VISTA Performance Measures Overview session. Happy Wednesday. We're halfway through the week, and excited to have all of you with us. To get us started off, we just want to let folks know or remind you this is one in a series of webinars and pieces of information that you'll be receiving around performance measures and the implementation process. Last week we had a chance to hear about the Senior Corps information. Today we'll be talking specifically about VISTA, and I want to start off by thanking the VISTA committee specifically that is a part of the Performance Measures Resource Team. I think as folks all know now, the PMRT has been doing a lot of work on your behalf around sharing information, getting information ready for all of you, and preparing for the implementation. And the VISTA team is no exception. And with leadership under Patrick Triano and Rob Cox out of VISTA, we just wanted to call out Kat Cohn, Rochelle Berry, Billy Brown, Mark Cullen, Chad Davis, and Jill Sears for the work that they've been doing for several months now on your behalf. And you'll hear some more about that in a bit from Patrick, but just wanted to thank them publicly on behalf of all of us. Also, before I turn it over to Patrick, I wanted to be able to share late-breaking news, which is that we have made a commitment with the hotel in Kansas City for the Field Liaison Performance Measures training event that will be taking place in May. You all heard a little bit about it, and we're happy to say we are going forward with that. So as you're hearing the information today, combining it with what you heard last week, we're very excited to be able to say we'll be able to get together face-to-face and not only continue to gather new information, but to be able to work with that information as well. So our goal in moving forward, as it has been, is to have you be as prepared as possible to have information so that you can best serve your grantees and sponsors. And we think the commitment on the part of the corporation to bring us all together to do that well is a really great one, and we're very grateful for it and looking forward to having us all together in one space to be able to work on this. So with that, I would like to turn it over to Patrick Triano, who will walk you through the VISTA information. Patrick?
Thank you, Kathy. And welcome, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. Speaking for the entire team, and Rob, who is in the room with me right now, we're very happy to be here. Perhaps this presentation has been a long-awaited one, as we have long awaited to present it. So with no further ado, this is the VISTA's perspective on agency-wide and complementary performance measures, and we'll be addressing the implications for VISTA projects and program development first. So, next slide, please. The objectives today are to present VISTA's perspective and position on performance measures that impact this year and the immediate future. Also, we want to lay out a training plan for you so you have a sense of what is down the road in terms of training. And today we want to especially clarify the requirements regarding Goal 1 and Goal 3 measures for this year, fiscal 12. So, it's important to know who is involved in the development of these measures and what all of these people are up to. So the players, as Kathy mentioned, the PMRT, the Performance Measures Resource Team, which has been made up of field and headquarters, including not only VISTA, but Senior Corps, AmeriCorps State and National, and the NCCC. We also have a working group that is exploring the challenges and the level of effort involved in measuring Goal 1 performance measures and looking at the relationship between the Goal 3 capacity building measures and Goal 1. They're looking at the viability of that and the implications of reporting on those measures in the future. Of course, the CEO's office and the Chief Program Office is involved. The Strategy Office, both our friends in RPD as well as our training and technical assistance folks are involved, and OIT is involved. And not least, the Office of Management and Budget, who is reviewing all of these measures, is intimately involved. Our contractors are involved in IT development, and our TNTA providers are also involved in this process. So that's to say that the development of these measures are so interrelated, and there are so many pieces that the initiative has been rolling out slowly. Some may say glacially. And what are all these players involved with? Well, we're looking again at the application process in VISTA. We're looking at how the PPR and the VPRS must change in order to capture data. We're grappling with eGrant's performance measurement module, which will essentially replace the VISTA project plan. We're developing data collection tools for all of the measures. I feel very importantly in terms of training and communication with our sponsors, we're developing a performance measures resource center page. We're involved with training design for both our sponsors and our staff. And lastly, we're developing session designs for PSO as well as the supervisors in the supervisor orientation. That said, let me also very specifically thank the members of the resource team, who you've heard: Jill, Mark, Kat, Rochelle, Billy, and Chad. Rob, Lisa, and Kathy have been on the phone with me, I think, every day and close to an hourly basis. But I also want to be sure to thank our supporters here in headquarters. There's Zach with Senior Corps. Susan Schechter is involved with the Resource Center page. Kelly Griffin is the person behind the development and the communication of the performance measures in the strategic office or strategy office. Stuart, who you all know. And as I say here, too many program partners to name and too many meeting hours to count. But I will say that everyone is sensitive to the change that's taking place in the corporation and the impact that it has on you in the field. So, with that, let us move. This, at this point, is old hat, but I will mention it again. From VISTA's perspective, we believe that the performance measures offer a conceptually sound system to comprehensively represent our projects. And by representing our projects, I am saying that we have developed these measures at least to communicate well to our many stakeholders. And our agency goals and definitions of terms add up to a significant and compelling narrative. That said, about the supporting policy and tools, as I've implied with the slide around the players and the play, policy, guidance, templates, and other data-related tools, in addition to automated forms such as the e-grants-related forms, and training are all in development. So as these roll out, as they become clearer to us, then we intend to communicate them as quickly and as clearly as we can. I imagine that there's a sense that certain information is either being withheld or not being communicated, when in fact often that information is not yet available. So I ask for your patience and an understanding that we will communicate salient information when we have it to you. All right. The guiding principles behind the VISTA decision-making process. First and foremost, we wish to report with integrity, and that is to say that the data that we offer is valid and verifiable. And we wish to do that at the level that we're presently able to, which is to say, we don't want to get too far ahead of the development of the tools and the guidance and the policy, and so we wish to take very careful and measured steps in requiring reporting on the data, on the performance measures. We also want to emphasize that current projects need not fit these measures. You don't have to twist it, you don't have to make it up. If they don't fit, they don't fit. But where they do fit, then please recognize that and help us identify that. Also, the development of new projects as we move into FY13 and beyond shall be aligned with certain Goal 1 performance measures. We'll speak more about the development process, but for the time being, let's leave it at that. And then finally, excuse me, my computer is messing with me. And then finally, we are respectful of the level of effort on the state offices in managing these changes throughout the corporation, as well as the impact and changes to your VISTA portfolio. And some of the changes and the level of effort that we're sensitive to is recognizing Senior Corps' new measures, its grant application review process, and then many of the working groups that we are pulling you into as well. And parenthetically, I say thank you all for that. All right. With that, as I said, one of the objectives of this training is to lay out a training plan. So we have a training plan that's essentially in 4 segments. The first segment are the 2012 requirements. The capacity building measures that are pertinent to VISTA and the related definitions of terms shall be covered. The protocols when and how to report on the measures, and the forms and instruments involved, the VPRS, the project application, etc., and the issue of alignment with Goal 1 performance measures. And this step is a step that later on in this presentation we will go into greater detail. A second step then is to look at 2013's requirements. We'll look at Goal 1 measures, we'll look at the focus areas, the priority measures, the complementary measures, and a definition of terms within those measures, as well as defining for you priority measure versus complementary measure. And we'll address reporting requirements. And let me make it clear on this step that there is no expectation on VISTA's part that we will be reporting on Goal 1 measures in fiscal year 13. The third step addresses the dimension of project development, some of which you may already be involved in. In that, we want to look at performance measures, concepts, and theories. Theories of change, practices of promise, evidence-based programming, and we'll also look to aligning projects to Goal 1 within VISTA's context. And the fourth aspect of this training are the focus areas. And in that, what we want to do is explore project examples in certain focus areas, namely economic opportunity, education, healthy futures, and veterans and military families. And we intend to do this through essentially a blended curriculum. We'll have a series of webinars. Luckily, we have an opportunity to join each other in Kansas City in May. So let's take a look at the next slide around process and timing. We also have the development of a performance measures page on the Resource Center. Currently, the page that we have captures a good deal of information, corporation-wide, some of it specific to AmeriCorps State and National. What we intend to do is to develop a page that will permit both you in the field as well as our sponsors to access information and guide themselves through the learning process around the performance measures, and to design the page in such a way that it's clear what's VISTA specific as opposed to, say, senior corps specific. We will continue to clarify policy and guidance as it is developed, and as I say, communicate it to you as we can. The parking lot. Much is being developed as we speak, and in many cases we have not yet developed our systems to the extent that we can answer many questions. Therefore, what's traditionally the parking lot is actually a kind of construction zone. Questions that are raised to us are actually a kind of guidance of where we need to look and where we need to develop tools and supporting guidance. So should you hear Rob or any of our colleagues say we're not quite sure yet, again, I ask for your patience, but also recognize that we will do our very best to address those questions. All right, next slide. We're now about to take a look at what was step one in the training plan, to look at 2012's requirements. None of this should come as a surprise. Our guidance stands, but I do hope that this is a refresher and a reinforcement. So, in terms of sponsors, our sponsors shall report on the project milestones of the project plans in the PPR. There's no change. What is new is that our sponsors shall also report on the Goal 3 capacity building measures. It's not terribly different from the past, except we're being a bit more prescriptive around what the capacity building measures are. So sponsors shall choose which and how many of those capacity building measures they will address and report on. They're not required to report on all capacity building measures, only those that are pertinent to the operation of their projects. And they will capture that data in the VPRS. That's that. In terms of the milestones, of course, as you know, we are asking you to give feedback on the milestones within a 45-day period, as we see feedback to our sponsors as a strategy for continuous improvement. We have 13, essentially, currently 13 capacity building measures, and they are consistent with the historical data gathering related to member tasks. All right. State offices shall also identify projects that align with Goal 1 measures. This is new. The Goal 1 measures, which I'm referring, are under the focus area of education. So that's school readiness, kindergarten through 12 success, and college access. Under economic opportunity is housing, financial literacy, and employment. Under healthy futures is food security, access to food resources. And finally, veterans and military family. All right. This may be a bit challenging to read. I assure you, though, we will give you access to a PDF that might be a bit easier to read. But this is a visual representation of the 4 goals of the corporation. We are aligning with Goal 1 performance measures, and sponsors are reporting on Goal 2. On Goal 3, excuse me. Goal 2 is member experience, as you may remember, and Goal 4 is a management internal goal for the corporation. So, alignment with Goal 1, reporting Goal 3. All right. 9 out of 10 people, when asked to describe capacity building, thought it was this structure in Ghent. So definitions are important. So let's take a look at the definitions, specifically those definitions around capacity building. Capacity building is defined as a set of activities that expand the scale, the reach, efficiency, or effectiveness of programs and organizations. Effectiveness then is defined as improved ability of the organization to achieve outcomes, resulting in better success rates or better quality of outcomes achieved. Efficiency, improved outcomes with the same level of resources. Improved or consistent quality of services with fewer resources. Scale and reach. The scope of a program's service. The increase can be measured by the number of new people or new populations served and or new and expanded services. And leveraged resources are additional resources or assets garnered through capacity building activities such as funding, volunteers, in-kind support, and partnerships. This list of definitions will be located under the Corporation State Office resource page on the VISTA campus. Please don't go there right now, but it will be there within 24 hours. I remind you that these definitions are the same definitions that was touched on by Kathy, Lisa, and Zach.
And hi, everyone. This is Rob. Just to remind you all that these definitions, you might ask where they came from. These are agency-wide definitions. So these are some of the ones that we thought were important. But if AmeriCorps State and National it has any of their organizations interested in doing capacity building, they would use the same definition of these terms.
Thank you, Rob. All right. Now we go into the performance measures themselves. These are the capacity building measures, and they are pertinent to VISTA. Again, the capacity building measures are made up of two kinds of measures. Agency-wide priority measures, which we have indicated here, as well as complementary measures. That is, measures that have been approved by OMB that reflect the work of VISTA and are important to VISTA in terms of its management and programming, but are not necessarily agency priorities. So, we have added all of the numbers and the indicators so that should someone turn to you and say G3 3.1, though I would recommend that you ask them to speak English, you can at least refer to these charts to follow it. So, priority measure goal 3, number 1, number of community volunteers recruited. And then number 2, the number of community volunteers managed by VISTAs. And goal 3, number 3, the number of organizations implementing 3 or more effective volunteer management practices as a result of the capacity building services. Whenever you have a question such as effective volunteer management practice, there will be a definition to support you. Okay. Then we have complementary measures. Under goal 3 again, all under capacity building. Number 4 is the number of organizations that received capacity building services from VISTAs. Number 5, the number of staff and community volunteers that received training vis-a-vis capacity building services provided by VISTAs. And number 6, the number of organizations that completed a community assessment, identifying goals and recommendations with the assistance of VISTAs. Slide 19. Number 7 are the hours of service contributed by community volunteers who were recruited by VISTAs. Number 8 are the hours of service contributed by community volunteers who were managed by VISTAs. And number 9 are the number of organizations reporting that capacity building activities provided by VISTAs have helped to make the organization more efficient. Right? Number 10, number of organizations reporting that they are more effective because of the VISTAs and capacity building. Number 11, the number of new systems and business processes. So that includes technology, management, training, or enhancements to existing systems and business processes put in place as a result of the capacity building services provided by our VISTAs. And number 13, the last number of additional activities completed and or program outputs produced by the program as a result of capacity building services provided by our VISTAs. All right. There's 14, excuse me. I said last and I was wrong. Number 14, number of organizations that have experienced an increase in requests for their programs and services as a result of capacity building services. Number 15, the number of additional types of services offered by organizations as a result of capacity building services. 16, the dollar value cash resources leveraged by VISTAs, and the dollar value of in-kind resources leveraged by VISTAs. That time, I really think we came to the end. I hope that you feel as I do that these are not dissimilar from the historical data we have collected over the years. It's very similar to the work and the tasks that have been carried out by our VISTAs in the recent past. So we do hope that these changes will not come as a shock to the system of our sponsors.
And what you'll see, this is Rob again, what you'll see in addition to these measures is that there are supporting tables of information that describe some of the terms, some of the key terms in each measure, as well as suggested data collection instruments, so how an organization might go about collecting data to report on these measures. Some of the tools for collecting data are more prescriptive. So, for example, the measures that ask whether an organization has been more efficient or more effective as a result of the capacity building services. In order to report on that, an organization would complete some sort of pre-post survey. And that survey has not been developed by the agency yet. So for that measure, we still have some of these policies and supporting documents that will need to be developed. The tables, which include all that background information, have been withheld as well, but will be forthcoming as OMB continues to approve all of the corporation's approach to performance measures.
Thank you, Rob. let's take a look then at the protocol for sponsors in FY12. All right, so we're asking that our sponsors continue reporting on the project milestones in the PPR. We also ask that they identify any new measures of the measures that we have just looked at, any of those measures that are relevant to them once they are released by OMB and by us. We ask then that they put a data collection system in place at the earliest possible, and that they collect the data and monitor their progress. Let me recognize that it's March, and we have not yet shared this information, the new measures, with our sponsors. And so our sponsors will have a relatively short turnaround in order to put these systems into place and collect the data. We recognize that. We are not here to ding anyone, especially when it is the corporation and the program who has put them in a difficult position. We ask that they do their best, as we will as well, and we will be as supportive and as thankful as possible. The data will be reported in the VPRS as it has been, and the VPRS is due on Halloween, October 31, 2012. All right. The VISTA project report supplement will have its instructions in hard copy, but sponsors will report in e-grants. And the VPRS will contain the capacity building measures as identified in the program guidance on pages 11 and 12. As I say, the reporting period is October 1 to September 30. If our sponsors have been able to collect some of the data relevant to any of the capacity building measures, so much the better. If not, then they will report on the period that they can. And as I said earlier, the due date is October 31. Let me take a look. Yes. All right. As mentioned earlier, the state offices will also identify for us those projects that are in alignment with the Goal 1 measures. The measures to which we're referring are, under the education focus area, school readiness, kindergarten through 12 success, and college access. Or the focus area of economic opportunity, the measures pertinent to housing, financial literacy, and employment. Under the Healthy Futures focus area, food security, or as I say, access to food resources. And finally, the focus area of veterans and military families. The recording mechanism for you in the state office to, once you have identified these, is still under development. And I know that our friends in OFL, as well as VISTA, are hard at work at that. And as soon as that's available, we will identify it for you and share. Any information, though, relevant to Goal 1 measures, you can find them at the Performance Measure Resource Center site, whose URL is at the bottom of this slide. And of course, we will make this slide deck available to you for you're editing, adapting, adopting, as well as reference. All right. Next steps then. In terms of training, we will address 2013 requirements that differ from 2012. We will discuss the implementation or implications for project development for 2013 and beyond. And we will explore the focus areas and the measures that fall under those focus areas that are relevant to VISTA. And as I say, we'll do this through kind of blended curriculum, face-to-face in Kansas City, webinars, and clear documentation on the performance measures resource page. Rob, do you want to add anything?
I will add that there's an appendix at the end of this presentation that includes all of the Goal 1 performance measures in those focus areas that Patrick referred to, so you can see exactly what we're talking about. And then I'll just say that next we're going to do a little survey, and to help us do that is Stuart Shave, and I want to once again publicly thank Stuart, who has provided a ton of the legwork for setting up things like webinars and scheduling and technology, in addition to lots and lots of strategic thinking and content, and he's just been great. So just give us one moment as we get that poll set up.
Yeah, and you're right, Rob, that despite what people say about Stuart, he is a fantastic resource, friend and colleague.
Well, I'd like to publicly thank Rob and Patrick for their thanks. No, I'm just kidding.
All right, so it's time to check for clarity. And Stuart, what do I have to do? Anything?
Nothing. We're going to do this over here.
Fantastic.
And we'll open this poll. So folks on the phone and on the WebEx, you'll have 3 minutes to complete this short poll.
Does it play Jeopardy music?
We don't have any music. We debated, but there was no consensus as to what music we would play. And
I thought it would have been built into the system.
No.
Okay.
There's no pink martini, though we did make the time for the poll a little bit shorter, so we'll try and keep you on your toes that way. So.
Good luck and don't cheat.
And Patrick and Rob, this is Kathy Ferguson. While folks are completing the survey, we just want to remind everybody that, as Patrick mentioned, not all of the performance measures that were outlined in the presentation have been approved by OMB yet. So as staff, you do have access to these, but we just want to remind you they should not be shared externally yet. You'll be notified when it's okay to share that information.
Thank you, Kathy.
I thought that was better than trying to sing music for people.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what we should have done. We should have hummed a little ditty.
Well, we're here dancing,
We are
but I
dancing.
don't think they're appreciating it.
Let me turn on the video. Hey, Mary.
As you walk over.
Just reshare the PowerPoint. You'll be all set.
Okay, so we're waiting for the final folks to submit their responses, and we've got about 10 seconds left in the bonus time period.
God, I love that.
3, 2, 1.
All right.
All right.
So, we take a look at the questions and the answers, shall we? Reshare. Thanks, Rob. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we would go down to, say, let's do 28.
Yeah, slide 28.
All right. So, the question was, sponsors must report on Goal 1 measures, Goal 2 measures, member experience, Goal 3 measures, capacity building, Goal 1 and 3 measures. Well, the answer is C. Sponsors must report on Goal 3, capacity building measures. Those of you who may have identified Goal 1 and 3, the state offices will be identifying projects that align with Goal 1, but sponsors themselves are collecting data and reporting data on Goal 3 measures, capacity building. Second question was, sponsors shall choose and report on Goal 1, focus area measures that are pertinent to them, report on all Goal 3 capacity building measures, choose and report on Goal 3 capacity building measures that are pertinent to them, choose and report on agency-wide Goal 1 measures, but report on all capacity building measures. And the answer is C. Choose and report only on the Goal 3 capacity building measures that are pertinent to them. All right. The third question was, state offices identify projects that align with performance measures in all of the agency's focus areas, all of the focus areas except disaster relief and environmental stewardship, any of the capacity building measures, primarily economic opportunity, and veterans and military families. By far the hardest question. In fact, we had debates over this for days, in case you were also challenged by the question. But the answer is that you in the state office will identify projects that align with the performance measures in all of the focus areas except disaster relief and environmental stewardship. And then number 4, what tool will the sponsors use to report on performance measures in FY12? The answer is B, the VPRS. And then finally, true or false, sponsors will continue reporting on existing project milestones in E-grants in 2012, and that is correct. They shall do so. So there we have it. Let's just flash on the appendix and then open up to questions, shall we, Rob?
Yes.
So the following slides detail the Goal 1 performance measures. In case you have not seen them, we added them as an appendix again, so this slide deck can serve as a reference tool as well as a training tool. So, as you know, the state offices are responsible for aligning with these Goal 1 measures. So we have measures under economic opportunity, and there is one agency priority measure there in housing. And in the next slide, you can see that we also report on measures related to education. And there are 3 agency priorities there, as we had earlier mentioned: school readiness, K through 12 success. And next slide, post-secondary success, which is not an agency priority, but nonetheless, we will align to it. It's a complementary, thank you. Under healthy futures, there are 2 agency priorities around obesity and food, or food security. And in the next slide, you can see there are 4 agency priority measures related to veterans and military families. So, with that, if we're all in agreement, I would like to open this up to questions from the field.
Yes.
So I believe, Lori, if you're still there with us, can we open this up for questions from the field, please?
Yes, sir. Thank you. We will now begin the question and answer session. If you would like to ask a question, please press star 1, unmute your phone, and record your name clearly when prompted. Your name is required to introduce your question. Press star 2 to withdraw your request. One moment, please, for the first question.
And while we wait for that question, I'll just look to the chat window. It looks like we've got one from Shannon Rolfe. She asks, when will the VISTA Progress Report Supplement be released for 2012? And that's a great question. One of the reasons that it hasn't been released yet is because we are still waiting on the Office of Management and Budget to approve, to give final approval that the performance measures that we are trying to opt into are appropriate. So until we receive that approval, we can't go ahead and redeveloping the VPRS for the new forms. So once we get that OMB approval, our process is to essentially draft the new VPRS, and then that will have to go back to a different unit in the Office of Management and Budget that is in charge of looking at the public burden of data collection requests. So that, as I understand it, is a several months or even 5-month-long process for those documents to be evaluated and approved by OMB. So it could be several months down the road before we actually get a VPRS that can be released to the public. So as you've heard, as Kathy said and as Patrick said, everything that you've heard here is really tentative. We have a good degree of confidence that OMB is going to give us the okay, but we don't have final approval on anything yet. So there you go. Do we have any questions from the phone?
Yes, sir. Our first question comes from Janet. Your line is open.
Thank you. This is Janet Beatty in California. Good presentation, very clear. I do have a question about the wording on the capacity building measures. In each of them, let's take, for example, the hours of service contributed by community volunteers who were recruited, and then it's by CNCS-supported organizations or national service participants. Now, what my experience has been when projects interpret this is, well, do they talk about all of the community volunteers that the organization has recruited? Because it says by CNCS-supported organizations. Could you clarify how an organization is going to determine the number of, for example, the number of volunteers recruited, the volunteer hours, based on this wording? Thank you.
That's a great question, Janet, and I'm not sure that we're going to be able to fully clarify on this call how that's going to work exactly. I think we'll probably add that to our construction zone question. What I would say, and this goes to another question that I think Leslie asked about volunteers and whether they're sustainable or not. The intent, I think, is more on the side of whether or not community volunteers and the hours that they served are a result of the VISTA's efforts as opposed to the organization's general community volunteer recruitment and management. So we recognize that there are many projects that are helping build volunteer recruitment and management systems for a number of different areas that benefit a number of different areas. But we're really looking for the ones that that can be at least linked to the VISTA's presence. And to Leslie's question about whether this is sustainable or not, the measure, once you read some of the background information, tries to make clear that an organization should only count community volunteers recruited and leveraged if they think that those community volunteers will be sustained without their presence. So we're still working out some of the nuance of that, and I think that those questions will be important as we implement this system going forward.
Rob, I think Janice also raises a two-pronged question. One is, how do we identify the number of hours a volunteer has served due to the services offered by the VISTAs? But if a project should have other national service participants involved, such as Senior Corps or state and national, how do they separate them out and determine? So we actually have two issues there that we need to tease out and ensure that behind the question, I believe, is how can we be assured that we have not double counted?
Exactly, and at this point, I've been mostly, when I talk to my projects that are VISTAs, I tell them as far as their PVRS thingamabob, to be very specific that they're only talking about the VISTA's work at the project. But the wording here is not all that clear. And your point is well taken about because many of my projects do have both AmeriCorps and VISTA, and teasing out those two for the project can be very tricky.
Yes. The only thing that I can say for sure right now, Janet, is it will be tricky. And we'll do our best to give you good guidance. Thank you for raising
the question.
Can you also put a note in there for those organizations that have multiple streams of service assisting them?
Yeah.
That we need to probably cross-check this against those, Senior Corps or state nationals guidance on this, because it would be really unfortunate if we were to be specific about VISTA data only to find out that they're reporting aggregate data.
That's right. No, we will indeed coordinate and ensure that what we have, again, is valid and verifiable data.
Rob, can you click on the little button?
Any other questions, Lori?
Sir, at this time I'm showing no further questions. If you would like to ask a question, press star 1, unmute your phone, and record your name. One moment, sir.
Thank you.
And while we wait for questions, we've just shared the results of the poll with the folks in the WebEx.
Sir, at this time I'm showing, we do have an additional question. One moment.
Oh, thank you.
And that comes from Shireen Tilley. Your line is open.
Thanks. Hi, Patrick.
Hi, Shireen.
A question on identifying projects in the certain focus areas. In our 3 states, we've made all of our projects are basically intermediaries. So our projects would be in all of those focus areas in many cases, or at least 2 of them or 3 of them. Is there any way to deal with intermediaries that might have 5 vistas working on economic opportunity and 5 on healthy futures, et cetera?
I know that Rob actually has grappled with this in developing the eGrants performance measure module. So I'll give it to you, Rob.
It's a great question, and I don't have an answer today. I mean, there are a number of different ways of looking at it, and some of it has something to do with what we call a project versus what we currently refer to as an action plan and so forth. So one project might have 5 action plans that have each having their own issue area or focus area. So we definitely recognize that as an accounting question, and we don't have an answer yet, but we are working on it. We're working on it, and it's a great question.
Yeah, we're very sensitive to the issue, and we'd like to be able to accurately capture that data, Shireen.
Okay. I was just curious whether when you referred to state offices will identify if that was going to be sort of an offline process or whether that was part of the eGrants application, like you said, project plan, where they could identify their areas, how you were planning to capture that. And I was just curious about our intermediaries, so I'll wait for more info.
Yeah, I think for this year, what we anticipate as being an offline process. And
okay.
One of the mechanisms that we've kicked around was somehow making an enhancement or a change to the pipeline report, where you're currently entering information about organizations during development. So we've talked with the wonderful Jill Sears, who's helped build some of that, about whether we could enhance that in some different way to help you all input those identifications in something like the pipeline report. And then there's the future, and we don't know quite what the future holds.
Okay. Great. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question comes from Kevin Murphy.
Oh, hi. Thank you. Yes, I wanted to ask about the community needs assessment slide. I didn't understand the emphasis on that because, like, what we're experiencing is projects whose community needs assessment uncover needs that have anything other than to do with our currently prioritized strategic priorities are kind of out of the picture. So I just wonder if you could comment on the need for the community assessments, please.
Let's see. How shall I comment on that? It is first of all, Kevin. It is a measure that the corporation and OMB agrees that community assessments for many of our projects are or is a step in terms of developing systems and processes that will successfully address the needs of a community, and that our VISTAs and other AmeriCorps members often assist in the development and the rollout of those assessments. Does that help answer your question, Kevin?
Yes, I think it does. I was thinking more in terms of if it uncovers needs that are not the needs we're looking for, though. You are out of the picture and irrelevant, so the only needs assessments we're going to be encountering are kind of like pre-identified because we're narrowing the focus. Yeah.
I remember in the process of our reviewing all of these measures, both the complementary and the agency priority, that we all sort of raised an eyebrow at this particular measure, but felt that we wanted to remain in alignment with the corporation, wanted to ensure that the corporation-wide complementary measures, when they might be pertinent to our sponsors, that we capture and report on it. But I understand your question, and we ourselves had conversations around it.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. At this time, I am showing no further questions.
Well, I'm a believer in open space, and when it's done, it's done. So if there are no further questions, then I would close by saying that Rob and I are going to cull the information that we shared with you here, and any supporting documents to this slide deck, and we will upload them to the VISTA campus on the state office page. And in the meantime, if there's any follow-up questions, both Rob and I and our brothers and sisters in the PMRT are at your service. So please, either probably email is the best way to go. Please email us, and we will respond to your question to the best of our ability.
And Patrick, this is Kathy, and we'll just remind folks again that the performance measures at cns.gov email is still live. So please forward any questions there, and they'll be captured not only for the VISTA presentation, but will also be held to make sure they're responded to in other training materials. So thank you.
Oh, Kathy, thank you so much for that. That may save my inbox bit. So thanks.
Recorded.
And this has been recorded?
Well, we know for sure the phone line has been recorded. Once I get back to my desk, I'll see it. Crossing my fingers, hopefully the WebEx recorded successfully.
Wonderful. All right, ladies and gentlemen, again, really, I want to thank you for joining us, for your patience, for your support, and for your good work. And everyone have a good afternoon and evening. Thank you, Lori.
Thank you. That does conclude today's conference call. Thank you for joining. You may disconnect at this time.